Real quickly before we begin, I want to thank this video's sponsor, CarMarshal.com. CarMarshal.com can save you lots of money on buying used or new vehicles, cars, trucks, school buses. If you want to save money, I'll have a link in the description down below. I know I'm going to
Punta Gorda Police Department Formal Personnel Complaint Narrative. I have been subjected to a pattern of unfavorable treatment by Captain Jason Ciaschini based on my gender. This treatment has been ongoing for a number of years and has affected many areas of my employment to include hiring, constant fear of termination, unequal pay, job assignments, promotions, training, and other terms and conditions of my employment. In accordance with Punta Gorda Police Department Standard Operating Procedure 202.00 IA2, I am submitting this complaint directly to the Chief of Police as this complaint is against the Support Services Commander, Captain Jason Ciaschini. I began my employment with the agency as a dispatcher and ultimately wanted to leave the communications center because of Captain Jason Ciaschini, the commanding officer of the unit. He would constantly come into the predominantly female unit and be condescending and degrading to us. He maintained a demeaning attitude and made us feel as if we were worthless and disposable. Multiple female dispatchers have complained in the past to Chief Butch Arenal as well as Chief Tom Lewis of this degrading behavior. I believe that Captain Ciaschini has been informally counseled on this and it has been possibly documented in his performance evaluation. At the time, instead of filing a formal complaint, I decided to seek other opportunities within the agency. I applied for an open accreditation manager position on October 18, 2012. I recall going through the interview portion of the application process and being asked questions in a manner that I would consider to be professional by everyone, until Chief Butch Arenal briefly stepped out of the room. Captain Ciaschini took the opportunity to ask me rapid-fire questions about managing grants, finance, etc. in a contemptuous tone in an obvious effort to discredit me. Afterward, I learned from others that were in the room that Captain Ciaschini made comments about his belief that I would not have the intellect to succeed in that position. It is apparent that other members of the board disagreed with his statement as I was ultimately appointed to the position on November 26, 2012, Personnel Order PGPO/1211-16. I would later go on to excel in that position and was publicly recognized for my efforts. Moving forward, I became a part of the administrative team, attending many of the department's hiring and promotional interviews. I quickly came to realize that the questions that Captain Ciaschini had presented to me were much different than those he presented to male prospective employees. I sat in other interviews and heard the captain's questions of male employees to be "So, what do you do for fun?" After accepting the new position as accreditation manager, Captain Ciaschini remained my supervisor. I was told by the captain that he would not support me being placed in the same pay grade as a male that formerly held the position, Troy Betancourt. I had to contact Human Resources on my own and fight for equal pay. I was later awarded the pay increase with retroactive pay as well. Captain Ciaschini was furious at this outcome and made it apparent through his demeanor and attitude toward me. Approximately a month later, around January of 2013, I was scolded by Captain Ciaschini and told that I clearly do not supervise anyone or anything, I only manage a process. This statement was demeaning and demoralizing. Many of my co-workers consoled me for days, weeks, and months afterward. Captain Ciaschini did this in an effort to beat me down and convince me that I am worthless as an employee, something that he has never done to a male employee. Although I had no direct subordinates listed on the organizational chart, the job description, which I signed, had the following: A supervisor responsibilities degree. I exercises staff advisory control over police officers with respect to ensuring compliance with accreditation manager standards. 2. Exercises staff advisory control over administration of grant funds. Captain Ciaschini's comments that I clearly do not supervise anyone or anything, I only manage a process degree was in effect a contradiction to my job description, thus demoting my role in the agency. Over the next weeks and months, Captain Ciaschini continuously treated me differently than the male employees, with a condescending and demeaning attitude. He would also display the same demeaning and condescending attitude toward other female employees in front of me to display his authority and further attempt to convince me that he was in control. On occasion, I would tell co-workers and also notified Chief Butch Arenal. In June of 2014, strictly due to another display of aggression toward me, Chief Butch Arenal reorganized the police department and placed me directly reporting to the Chief of Police. The incident involved Captain Jason Ciaschini alleging that I misappropriated department funds for my own personal gain. The incident occurred in Captain Lewis' office in front of Captain Lewis, and I immediately notified Chief Arenal. Chief Butch Arenal advised me and others that he would not stand by and allow Captain Jason Ciaschini to treat us in this manner any longer. During Chief Arenal's tenure as the Chief of Police, I, in my role as accreditation manager, was made a part of the administrative team, a role that was also enjoyed by former accreditation managers at the police department. I was added to the police admin email distribution group, attended each and every morning admin meeting, was able to provide input on policy development, was made part of administrative reviews on uses of force, pursuits, etc., assisted at crime scenes and at command posts, and many other aspects of participating in the administration. In September of 2015, Chief Butch Arenal retired and Chief Tom Lewis took office. Captain Jason Ciaschini requested that I be placed back under his supervision. Chief Lewis was very well aware of the circumstances up to this point and had witnessed many instances of the captain treating me differently than that of male employees. As the former operations commander of the department, Tom Lewis had protected me from him. Captain Jason Ciaschini was denied his request. During Chief Lewis's tenure as the Chief of Police, I, in my role as accreditation manager, was kept as a part of the administrative team. I remained in the police admin email distribution group, attended each and every morning admin meeting, was able to provide input on policy development, was made part of administrative reviews on uses of force, pursuits, etc., assisted at crime scenes and at command posts, and many other aspects of participating in the administration. As the months went on, Chief Lewis became too busy to supervise the accreditation function directly, and in April of 2016, he reorganized the police department to have me directly report to the operations. Page 2 of 7. Commander, Captain Jeff Woodard, 601604-02. Chief Lewis made many comments that he was aware of Captain Ciaschini's disparate treatment of me and that he would not allow it. Captain Woodard agreed with that assessment and requested that I be placed under his supervision where he could stop Captain Ciaschini from his demeaning and condescending treatment. In December of 2016, I requested to have my dispatch certifications renewed and was advised that Captain Ciaschini as the head of the communications section denied my request. In February of 2017, I spoke directly to Captain Ciaschini and requested a second time to have my dispatch certifications renewed. He stated that there was no reason. I advised that if the administrative service supervisor position became available again, I wanted to pursue that position and maintaining those certifications would be an advantage to both me and the department. Captain Ciaschini stated that that was never going to happen and that dispatch didn't fall under the administrative services supervisor. I reminded him that it did when a male employee, former Lieutenant Joe King, was the supervisor, and Captain Ciaschini stated that that was an anomaly. It was very clear at that point that the captain would not afford me the same training or promotional opportunities as another male employee, Lieutenant Joe King. The entire conversation and tone was very condescending and demeaning. Captain Ciaschini was taking every opportunity to prove that he was in control and had the authority to treat me differently. In February of 2017, Chief Lewis was placed on administrative leave and Captain Jason Ciaschini was named by City Manager Howard Koenig as the interim Chief of Police. Approximately April of 2017, I'm not sure of the exact date, after Katie Heck filed a gender-based complaint against interim Chief Jason Ciaschini with Howard Koenig, I was called into Howard Kunnick's office in City Hall to discuss the problems with the interim chief. I confirmed to the city manager at that point that the interim chief Ciaschini clearly had a problem with women. I recalled many instances of this man being demeaning and condescending toward women in the agency, to include me. Howard also spoke to Beverly Markey in his office, where she confirmed there were instances of mistreatment based on gender. Beverly and Katie both told me later that they confirmed this for Howard Kunnick. I was also told that afterward that the interim chief was called to Howard's office and counseled regarding the matter. No investigation, no documentation, no changes. According to City Personnel Rules and Regulations 22.1 and 22.5, instances of harassment and retaliation would not be tolerated and would be investigated. When 3 separate complaints were filed to the city manager, we felt defeated as there was no investigation and we received no correspondence that corrective action was being taken to eliminate further harassment. When those instances went uninvestigated, it led me to believe that interim chief Ciaschini was untouchable as the interim chief of police. Not only was there no investigation, but after learning of our complaints, interim chief Ciaschini treated us even worse. He ramped up his efforts to overdocument every perceived shortcoming in our work and then berated me in our weekly meetings. It was obvious that he was attempting to scare me from further complaining by revealing to me that he had been creating documentation against me. In June of 2017, Norm Nara became the interim operations commander. Shortly after, I was directed by interim chief Ciaschini to create an accreditation matrix. This was a work-intensive project being page 3 of 7. Added to my workload in an effort to create pressure for me to quit. I understood from his tone of voice and pattern of behavior toward me in the past that if this wasn't done properly and on the timeline that he requested, I could be terminated. This was validated by interim chief Ciaschini's pressure on interim captain Norm Nara to pressure me in completing it. The next addition to my job assignments came as interim chief Ciaschini instructed me to retype all of the agency's standard operating procedures from scratch. At the time, I was confused and thought he must be kidding. When I realized that he was serious, I re-evaluated the workload of my position being the accreditation manager, grants administrator, staff inspector, as well as other ancillary duties as the agency's crisis intervention team liaison, etc. I offered the suggestion of having one of our 70 volunteers do the work which I could supervise, or one of our interns. This was an extremely cumbersome task and I knew with my current workload, I would need some assistance. Interim Chief Ciaschini's response was clear. In a demeaning and condescending tone of authority, the same one I have seen and heard for years, he refused to allow assistance and made it clear that I was to do it. As the pressure from Interim Chief Ciaschini would not stop, in June of 2017, I spoke to Captain Norm Nara, now my direct supervisor, about the difficulties I have had in the past working for Interim Chief Ciaschini and the treatment described above. Instead of offering me any form of human resources assistance or any help at all, he told the interim chief of our conversation, yet another move that led me to believe that Interim Chief Ciaschini was untouchable as the interim chief of police. In June of 2017, I was advised that I must fill out an excused with pay form when attending conferences, a practice that no male administrator had to do. As I had not seen a new policy on this practice and the conferences were job-related as outlined in my job description, I saw this as another change in the terms and conditions of my employment. On September 8, 2017, I was advised that I was not considered an essential employee for Hurricane Irma. I have always been a part of the administrative team during similar incidents in the past. Being removed from the administrative team was yet another change in the terms and conditions of my employment. On September 22, 2017, Interim Chief Ciaschini reorganized the department to have my position report directly to the Support Services Supervisor, his former role. It was very clear that he was doing this to ensure that when a new chief of police arrived, which he knew was coming in just months, I would be directly under his control as he would be assuming his former role. This was proven on October 10, 2017, when Interim Chief Ciaschini issued yet another general order placing me, accreditation, grants and staff inspections, under the temporary command of the Interim Chief of Police, Jason Ciaschini, until the new Chief of Police started, and then the position returned the Support Services Supervisor, Captain Jason Ciaschini, G01710-03. Over the next months, Interim Chief Ciaschini continued his demeaning and condescending attitude toward me. On November 8, 2017, I spoke to City Manager Howard Koenig in my office about why I wasn't selected with the rest of the administrative team to be a part of the new chief's selection process. He advised that he was told that I was having a hard time. He would not tell me who it was that advised him. Of page 4 of 7. Course, I advised Mr. Koenig that I was not having a hard time. I didn't miss any work, no sick time or other time off. I have not been disciplined for any reason, formally or informally. No one had ever come to me and asked if I was having a hard time or offered any assistance. As I was certain that Interim Chief Ciaschini had been feeling pressure that I may approach the new chief with the history of his discrimination, he planted seeds with City Manager Koenig to undermine my credibility. I started to tell Mr. Koenig that whatever he heard was absolutely false and someone's attempt to discredit me. I later heard that several of the city council members heard that I was having a hard time also. After this, Interim Chief Ciaschini continued to retaliate against me by doing the below items. On multiple occasions during the weekly accreditation manager meeting, Interim Chief Ciaschini voiced his concerns that I was going to miss something. He kept saying that everything hinged on me not making a mistake. I was pressured by thinking he knew I was missing something and that I would be fired. He was simply trying to create an environment that would make me quit. Every word was demeaning and with a condescending attitude. Next, he proceeded by demoting me from being an administrator. I was taken out of the police ADM in distribution email group, stopping communication and making a public statement to my co-workers. B. I was advised not to attend staff meetings on December 15, 2019. See within the city's Z:/Drive network. Employee job descriptions are within employment classification folders titled for each of the different city divisions. Within the police folder were 3 subfolders titled Administration, Sworn and Non-Sworn. My job description, Accreditation Manager, was located in the folder titled Administration. Interim Chief Ciaschini removed my job description from the Administration folder and placed it in the folder titled Non-Sworn. The Administration folder is now labeled Command Staff. On January 11, 2018, my two-way police radio was taken away from me. I was advised that there were not enough. However, there are 5 in the volunteer's office not being used. I have used this radio in my job functions for years as the accreditation manager, the staff inspector, etc. January 12, 2018, I requested an unmarked police car for transportation to the upcoming accreditation conference. Captain Ciaschini told me there was not one available and that I was to use my personal vehicle. When L told him that I didn't have a vehicle, he basically said that was not his problem. He told Beverly Marquis that he was going to teach me a lesson. This jeopardized my ability to receive needed training at the conference. I never recall Captain Ciaschini teaching a male employee a lesson. Furthermore, he denied my request to teach me a lesson. What was the lesson? That I was to be treated differently because I was a female? In yet another demeaning and condescending meeting on January 25, 2018, Captain Ciaschini advised that he believed I was not being thorough with the work I was handing in. He was concerned that my work product was going down, but he couldn't elaborate what his concerns were, only that he had concerns. This was said after years and years of exceeding performance standards on annual evaluations. Page 5 of 7. Under previous supervisors. This was clearly his way of communicating with me that he controlled my professional career. All he has to do is just say the words, that my work product is poor, and they are true. On February 24, 2018, I was advised that as a line employee, a term used many times by Captain Ciaschini to demean employees, I was not required to complete the bi-weekly payroll form, a process I have done for many years. As most other administrators complete bi-weekly payroll, this is another example of Captain Ciaschini changing the conditions and terms of my employment. This list of examples are just a few among the almost daily mistreatment that has created a hostile work environment under Captain/Interim Chief Ciaschini. Although the mistreatment has been going on for many years, I believe that minimal efforts were put forth to shield me from his discrimination by former chiefs and former supervisors. Captain Ciaschini's gender discriminations have been clearly recognized by many former employees, supervisors, command officers, and chiefs of police, many of them now wanting to provide witness statements to an investigator of the EEOC violations to ensure that the truth is exposed to stop Captain Ciaschini from doing this to me or any other employees in the future. There are also current and former female employees, sworn and civilian, that have been directly discriminated against that need a voice through this investigation. Aside from the parties named above, the following is a list of witnesses that have direct knowledge or experience of the above and will be able to provide testimony as to the discrimination and mistreatment. 1. Former Chief Albert A. Arenal. 2. Former Chief Thomas Lewis. 3. Former Captain Jeff Woodard. 4. Former Lieutenant K.D. Heck. 5. Former Lieutenant Joe King. 6. Captain Jim Nichols. 7. Lieutenant Melissa Reynolds. 8. Lieutenant David Linker. 9. Lieutenant Rick Mohawk. 10. Lieutenant Chris Salzman. 11. Lieutenant Terry Cochran. 12. Interim Captain Norman Nara. And 13. Executive Assistant to the Chief of Police Beverly Markey. I have witnessed other former female employees suffer the same form of gender-based discrimination, and if interviewed, I believe that they will offer truthful testimony in an official investigation. You will notice that Captain Jason Ciaschini changed so many aspects of my employment as a direct result of filing complaints to former Chief Arenal, former Chief Lewis and City Manager Howard Kunnick, increased workloads, many tasks which were demeaning and unnecessary, influencing my training and promotional opportunities, to demoting me out of the administration of the agency. All of this was done. Page 6 of 7. As I maintained excellent performance evaluations under every other supervisor that I have ever worked for in my 11-year career here at the Punta Gorda Police Department. I am asking for a professional standards investigation into the incidents with Captain Jason Ciaschini. Captain Ciaschini has clearly violated policy and federal law in the disparaging treatment of me and other women at the department. Signed. 4441 Gloria Sepanik, Accretion Manager. /11.1.14.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I just wanted you to know that I am using this stuff under fair use. And also remember to like and subscribe this channel. Also too, keep in mind I do not make any money on YouTube. This is 5 hours work a day, you know, fighting for freedom. And you can donate with PayPal and Patreon. I just want you to think about this. If everybody gives to PayPal and Patreon, Patreon is every month. Actually, PayPal you can do every month. I have 12,000 subscribers. If everybody gives, I can quit my regular job and go full-time investigations on Charlotte County and possibly even more and beyond. So just keep that in mind. If everybody helps out, I can go full-time doing this. Thanks.